Hello, my friend, and welcome to the 711th episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today we have Jeff Ketterer. Jeff with a G. Geoff, one of those British things. And Jeff is from Great Britain, a little bit southwest of London. And he has created a thing called the Sales Team Operating System. So we peel that back. What does that mean? And he works with sales teams. He works with the leadership as well. And we dive into, is when sales teams are struggling, is it a skill set? Is it a leadership? Is it, emotional IQ, or what they call emotional quotient, whatever they call it? You know what I'm talking about. Is it because they broke up with their girlfriend or boyfriend, or their cat's sick? Like, why do people underperform, and how do you fix it? Is it a money thing? Is it a compensation thing? Is it, the meetings will continue till morale improves? Is it marketing's fault? The leads suck. You suck. Well, I don't know. Could be. So we peel that back. Spoke for about 40 minutes, and he's got an offer if you stay till the end. For listeners of this, you get a nice little bonus he's giving away for free and he tells us how to do that. And it is not in the description. It's not in the show notes. So you have to listen to the end to get his bonus, which I did not know he was going to give away. So that was cool. So we had a good talk. If you are in sales, if you are in sales leadership, if you own the business and sales aren't quite where they should be, this is for you. Okay. So in the description, we link out to his LinkedIn, to his website. And we did not talk about it on the recording, but before we hit record, he mentioned he's got a big following on TikTok. So I was picking on him about that, but I'm grabbing that link as well. So that's on the website. It's in the show notes. Hey, go where the people are. And so I need to look at that and see if I can grow that. But I've been growing on YouTube, on Instagram. It's hard to be everywhere. It helps to be everywhere, but it's hard to be everywhere. And, but I will link to that as well. If you need help, we talk about his training. I've got my inner circle. Okay. I've got 12 weeks to peak. 12weekspeak.com is a free habit tracker. Get on that. And I'm linking as well to my free daily email, which I had always had, just didn't promote as much, but I got caught up and added to it. So there's more good content there than ever. So check that out in the show notes. I'll link to that as well. Okay. So get ready for this interview with Jeff. Jeff Ketterer from the thriving metropolis of Truro, England. Welcome to the Sales Podcast, man. How the heck are you?
I'm doing good, Wes. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Pleasure to be here.
35,000. Look, I lived in a city with 11,000 people. So try selling mobile homes in a town of 11,000 people, and then the company goes bankrupt.
Tough gig.
Like, I've heard the British are very kind and accommodating. Should we make this about me?
I think you might have heard wrong there, Wes. No, we're typically a bunch of SOBs.
The Canadians are the nice ones. Okay, yeah, I know somebody with a funny accent. Maybe the Aussies. Kiwis I heard are mean. Aussies are kind of not. Okay, the Brit. Okay, all right.
Yeah. We're somewhere in between, right?
Gotta get Depends my game on what day you catch us. Charge your sales team over 300 teams trained.
Mm-hmm.
But were they trained well? I've trained thousands, but I mean, like, most of them need therapy. So I mean,
Isn't that the job of a sales manager, Wes? You part-time trainer, part-time therapist.
I'm like Microsoft, right? Release the software, then release the virus, then sell the antivirus, and then sell the upgraded software. I mean, so
that's right.
It's like in jiu-jitsu, I always mess around with the new guys. I'm like, I show the new guys the wrong way. I don't want them to get better and beat me.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on,
that makes no sense to anybody.
My goodness. So what is happening? Founder of the Sales Team Operating System, fractional sales management, turning 6-figure sales teams into 7-figure sales teams on autopilot. Okay. So do tell. How is that possible? Is that really possible?
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, it's possible. It's possible through good leadership. That's the cornerstone of everything that I do is if you have good leadership, the team will perform almost by themselves.
Gotcha. So who brings you in? Because I like unpacking this. Is it like an owner that says, hey, get my manager better? Is it a manager going, I've got to get better? Because you've got to have some self-awareness to realize, hey, I can probably get better. And I can probably get better faster with some outside help.
Yep. It's both.
It's not always an easy conversation.
It's rarely an easy conversation. It's both. It's CEOs, founders, owners that know their team could be performing better and they have identified a bottleneck in the management. And then managers who are suffering from bad results, lack of respect on the team, who know that they could lead a team better if they had the right training. Because the reality is in sales, and I know this from experience, is that the vast majority of managers, sales managers specifically, but probably managers in the wider sphere, are promoted because they're good at their job. Well, that's great, right? If you can sell, that's awesome. But just because you can sell doesn't mean you can manage, because the two jobs are completely different. So what I typically see is very often good salespeople become bad managers because nobody's ever taught them the interpersonal skills, the leadership necessary in order to be able to get a team all rowing the boat in the same direction at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I do.
So if you are brought in, when you're brought in, are you like, is it 80-20, like 80% working on the sales manager, 20% on the team? Is it 50-50, or do you work with the team, let the manager see how you work with them? Like how do you bring about that change?
Yeah, every scenario is different. So sometimes management can be pretty good. It's just that they've got, some duds on the team. Occasionally that's the case, right? And I've had managers say to me, well, because my philosophy is this, the buck stops with you as a manager, right? And I've had managers push back on this. I ran a workshop a month or so ago, and I had about 45 managers, CEOs, founders in the room. And a manager turned around and he said, well, that's not strictly true. And I said, all right, I'm willing to be educated. Educate me. Why is that not strictly true? He said, well, what if I've got a dud on the team? I said, well, that's your job to train him. Okay, fine. But what if he's untrainable? I said, then it's your job to fire him. Either way, it stops with you. So it's like you can't blame the team. There's no such thing as a bad team. There's just bad managers. And your job is that if you have an underperformer, you've got to train them better. And if they can't learn for some unknown reason, then they've either got to shape up or ship out.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Dan Kennedy, the marketing guy?
For sure.
Right. I remember years ago, I read one of his letters. He was talking about it's all my fault. He says, I got rear-ended on the way, going to the tracks because he races those buggies, and people are like, well, you got rear-ended. It's the other guy's fault. It's just my fault. I was driving on that road at that time, going to that location. It's my fault. And I put that in one of my daily emails. And the guy, he kind of replies back, no, this, that, and the other. I'm like, it's all your fault. As soon as you accept that, you're no longer a victim. Why me? Blah blah blah. So it's funny. I don't know if it's funny, or funny sad that guy even brought that up with you. It's like, how was that not obvious?
There's a bit of both. I tend to teach people it might not all the time be your fault, but it is always your problem. So,
Yes, for sure.
some external force could have caused that issue. Now it's your job to fix it, regardless of who caused it. So it's not necessarily your fault, but it is 100% of the time your problem. Yeah.
So when I was in that town of 11,000, right, I took over I was the general manager of this mobile home store that was grossly underperforming. And I got up there at the end of June, and my district manager calls me and he says, hey, have you seen your P&L? They were a negative $63,000 per month in 1990. And I told him, I said, David, that is not my P&L. I said, tomorrow it is, but I didn't create that. So it was the kind of same thing. I didn't make that, but it was my problem. And I fixed it, but man, it was a big problem.
Yeah, for sure. 63 negative per month.
1,000 in 1999. So double it, right? It'd be like being negative $1.5 million a year today.
Crazy.
And mobile home lots, they're not like car lots, right? I mean, we would have an inventory of like 20 units. So making that up, that was a beast.
Big problem.
So like when you come in, how do you help the manager save face? Because I got to imagine sometimes like things are backwards. Like you're making them shift 180 degrees.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
How do they save face?
It usually comes down to a few simple things. It's always a few simple things, right? I worked with a team recently and the sales manager was very passive aggressive. Okay. He'd put things in the Slack channel, in the internal Slack channel, like, well, maybe if we had better performing salespeople, we'd be able to hit this number. He's saying this to the boss, right? And the salespeople are in that channel, right? So it's like, dude, it's so passive aggressive. I said, you can't do that. He said, well, how do I get the point across to the team? I said, you berate in private, you praise in public.
Yeah,
You
for
have to,
sure.
right?
For
And these
sure.
are, to anybody who's seasoned in management or leadership, they're going to understand a lot of these principles. But this is the problem, is that so many people find themselves in a leadership/management position without any of these skills, right? So number one is just teaching them how to communicate effectively with their team. The same guy I had one interaction with just after I started working with him. And he said to me, well, I gave them all $100 bonus and they came in the next day like they couldn't give an SH1T. I don't want to cuss on this podcast, but they couldn't care less. And I said, well, how often are you telling them that they're doing a good job when they're doing a good job? He said, oh, well, I do that in our quarterly reviews. I said, okay, great. So they're waiting several months before you tell them they're doing a good job. Yeah. It's like, well, dude, I said, how many people on the team are doing a really good job? He said, well, to be fair, like probably 60, 70%. And I said, okay, what I want you to do on Monday morning is I want you to go around to each of those people individually, and I want you to just tell them how grateful you are that they're there. You love having them on the team. They're crushing, and you're proud of them and you're proud of the team, and it's an absolute pleasure having them there. Don't give them any $100 bonus. Don't do any of that. Just tell them all that. Sales instantly started to increase because of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? One of the main pillars is significance. That's something we all crave. So what he realized really quickly is that telling somebody they're doing a good job and that you're grateful that they're on the team is worth infinitely more than $100 because it gives them that significance. And what happened is the team slowly started to enjoy their jobs more. They slowly started to have a better time at work. The manager slowly started to gain more respect. The other thing, and this is the other big one, and Heather Elkington talks about this quite a lot. She's pretty cool, and she does a lot about leadership. And the other big mistake they do is that they will avoid difficult conversations because nobody likes conflict, right? Maybe if you like jumping in the ring as a UFC fighter, you kind of.
I do.
Well, okay, there we go. All right. Well, I found somebody. But when it comes to a workplace environment, nobody wants to tell that person, "Hey, this is not good. We need to fix this," right? And I said, what you don't manage cannot be measured, And I said, so when there's a difficult conversation, just have it right then and there. Eat that frog, nip it in the bud, just do it. Do it in a nice way. Say, hey, dude, look, this is going to be kind of a tough conversation. Set them up, set the expectation for them, but ultimately have that conversation, good or bad. If it needs having and it's a bad conversation, have it quickly, get it over and done with.
Yeah.
And if it's good, have it quickly and get it done. And honestly, I can't tell you that the team, everything started to improve. Sales, morale, culture within inside of the team. And it was just a few simple tweaks that needed to be made. Now there's some deeper stuff that we worked on, but that was the kind of outset, was just getting some of these fundamental basics correct so that he could build some respect within the team. That was what was really missing.
Yeah. I heard something years ago. It was like the 36-hour rule.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the gist of it is like you dread having this, like maybe you got to fire somebody or whatever. And you're like, oh, you don't want to do it. They got a family. What I really like them, but it's a layoff, right? Like you have to do it. And so you dread it. You put it off. Days, weeks go by. You find I have to do it. And like within 30, the dust settles. People come to terms with it and they move on.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been laid off plenty of times. I was in high tech, man. It was chaos. I always landed on my feet. It's a lot of times people, they know when they're underperforming, and so I think deep down, it's like people, we don't mind accountability. Good people don't mind tough love, accountability. Let's put a plan in place. Let's execute, and we don't respect people that allow stuff just to get squirrely, afraid of the tough conversations. But it always happens, right?
It's a big thing. It's a big thing. And, clearly setting expectations. Like if you do have to go through a process of laying somebody off, I teach this to the managers that I work with. I said, before it gets to that stage, obviously there's several phases that we go through before you actually, you don't just drag somebody in off the shop floor and fire them, right? There's a performance review that needs to take place and all this kind of stuff. I said, so the precursor to that is to pull somebody in and say, hey, look, if things were going bad for you, would you want me to leave it and just say one day your history, or would you want me to tell you so that we can work on fixing the problem? 100% of people say, yeah, I'd want you to tell me so that we can work on fixing the problem. Okay, this is that conversation, right? So now there's an
Yeah.
expectation, and we can clearly set an expectation for a performance enhancement process, right? And you're giving them feedback all the way along. And you're absolutely right. Through that process, they are going to know whether it's going well or whether it's going bad. And you set a date. Okay, this is what we need to achieve by this date. I'm going to do everything in my power to help you. Anything you need, you make sure you ask me. I'm going to be with you every step of the way to make sure that we can hit this. I do need to let you know, if we don't hit it, we're going to have a more difficult conversation. You understand that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I understand it. But now, either they hit it, either they step up to the plate and they hit it. And as a manager, you should absolutely be doing everything in your power to help them achieve that goal. If they don't, for whatever reason, it doesn't come as a massive shock when the date comes around and you've got to have that conversation. You call them into the office and they're like, yeah, I figured. Right. So it's always about, and you know this, a sales call is always a better sales call when there's clear expectations set. A conversation with your children is always a better conversation when there's clear expectations set. And the same is true for a workforce or somebody who you're managing. You've got to clearly set expectations, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah. So when people are underperforming, what are you seeing as like the underlying cause? Is it an emotional like support, esprit de corps thing, or are they just not trained? Like they don't know how to do their job, so they're not doing it. Is there a blend? Or is
It's a
it
blend.
shifted more towards esprit de corps versus like just technical know-how?
Yeah, it's a blend. What I use is something like a training rubric. And what it has is several stages on it that each person fills out, each salesperson will fill out weekly to begin with. So if they're in ramp up phase, then they'll fill it out every week. They'll fill it out and the manager will fill it out. And it has several phases in it, like what is their competency with their product knowledge? What is their competency with their skill set? What is their competency with the overall ethos of the company? Like, do they understand the kind of mission, vision, values of the company? And the last one is emotional. How are they emotionally? Scored 1 through 5. Okay. And then it kind of gives you a tally at the end. But what that does is tell you very quickly where the skill set is lacking. Like, what is this? Is it an emotional problem? Is it a skill set problem? Is it a product knowledge problem? So by using that, you can identify, because, again, I don't want to berate all managers here. I've just seen so much bad management that I have to harp on it. And a lot of managers will go, it's all skill set. He's just not selling enough. And then when you dig beneath the surface, you suddenly realize that guy split up with his girlfriend a week ago and he's in emotional turmoil. He's an absolute mess. The guy's a wreck. He can sell. He has got good product knowledge. He has got a good skill set, but emotionally, he's in the dust, right? So I think managers are too quick to just go, oh, it's a skill set. Well, no, not necessarily. The second thing is, how secure does that person feel in their job, right? Are they sat there every day worried that if something goes wrong, they're going to get the boot? And I've had managers go to their workforce and it's turned out to be that exact thing. Oh, I'm just worried if I underperform 1 month, I'm going to lose my job. And they have that conversation and they go, well, dude, look, it's not going to be based on 1 month. Your stats, your KPIs, your targets are not based on 1 month. You're safe. You're doing good. Just, dude, chill out. And off the back of that, the guy skyrockets. Sales go through the roof. So, one of my mentors used to say, sales isn't a job you can do when you're in a bit of emotional turmoil. If you're an accountant, you can do your job pretty much no matter what, right? It doesn't matter what's going on because 5 plus 5 is always going to be 10, doesn't matter which way you slice it. But as a sales professional, everything relies on your emotional stability. If you break up with your girlfriend, the chances of you being able to perform at a high level are slim because you're an emotional mess. So we've got to make sure,
What if
as
she was a
managers,
bad girlfriend?
who was the bad girlfriend? Well, I mean, it turned out he was
What
better
if
off
I'm
without her.
happy
But
that we broke up?
yeah, right. He was in the end, funnily enough. But the big thing is making sure that people are emotionally stable. because emotion plays a huge part in sales, and people are just too quick to jump on the, oh, it must be a skill set problem. Well, not necessarily.
Okay. I kind of agree. I know where you're coming from with this, but I mean, how much I've never had a boss ask me, are things okay with my wife or my kids okay? I mean, I don't know. Am I just old school? Grind it
Maybe.
out? Do we have to do more hand holding and kumbaya with the younger generation?
I think it's the point at which a manager needs to step up. And this is the big difference between a manager and a leader, right? A manager, to my mind, they check the boxes and they do a lot of what they do for their benefit. A leader is somebody where the boxes get checked as a result of pushing everything forwards. And the team will, I often say, your team should look at you like they follow you into battle, right? That should be how the team look at you, right? And I think you don't necessarily need to ask about their kids and their wife and stuff like that. But if somebody's performance is dropping, pulling them aside and saying, hey, dude, look, just looking at the stats, looks like you're off this month. Is everything okay? Like, are you okay? Is everything all right at home? That kind of a conversation. I can't tell you how many times somebody has come back and gone, actually, dude, no, things aren't okay. I've got this thing going on. Right. And it's just like approaching it from a position of care first and foremost. You know, your stats are dropping. Is everything okay? I think that goes a long way. And I forget who it was. Maybe Gary Vaynerchuk or somebody said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think that is lacking as well. A lot of people, they will just, okay, so management and leadership, that's about whipping the team.
Meetings
Sometimes,
will
sure.
continue until morale improves.
Right. Yeah, I will continue to whip you until you start smiling about it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's like, well, dude, these people, like, you just every day is all stick and no carrot. And I've been in jobs like that. I was in a corporate sales role. Every single morning meeting was about how terrible we are, whether we hit KPI, whether we hit target or not. And every single person used to leave that meeting just like, dude, why am I even here? Why do I even bother? And when the manager finally came in, this was one of the things that sparked a kind of fire in me to make management better, to make sales management better, was when a good manager came in, the performance of the team went through the roof just because everybody was happy to be there. They were enjoying their job. And it's the kind of unwritten rule. It's what's written between the lines. If you want people to perform better, make sure they're happy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I forget the exact record, but, in American football, right, the NFL, it's the Lombardi trophy, for the Super Bowl. And, Vince Lombardi, like when he got to the Green Bay Packers, I think they were like had one victory or no victories. And he had like a winning record the next year. I think they won the first Super Bowl, right? Like within 2 or 3 years. So it was essentially the same team. It was just leadership, and so that's why it's named after him. He was such a good coach at just turning things around. And you see it all the time in sports, new coach comes in and just flips the script. So it's leadership. But I mean, leadership. I mean, I was fortunate to go into the military and just have it beaten into me,
Right.
right? Like how to lead.
Yep.
And saw good examples, saw bad examples. Like to say, everybody teaches you something, how to do it or how not to do it.
For sure.
How do people learn to be good leaders today? Maybe if they didn't have military, even if they did, but maybe they don't think it applies to the civilian world.
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. I think people are fickle and everybody learns differently. I think if somebody isn't, if there's a founder or a CEO or a boss of a company who has a manager in their business and they are not doing everything they can to put that manager through some form of managerial course, that could be with me, it could be with anybody, doesn't matter. But if they are not investing in that manager's ability to manage, then they are forever going to be stuck on the flywheel of, oh, I wonder why our churn is so high. I wonder why our
Mm-hmm.
numbers aren't better. And they always look at the team. They always look at the front line. They never look at the general, right? And I just think if you train your generals better, your team will, to use a military expression, follow them into battle more often. Do you know what I mean? And I just think there's a distinct lack of investment in sales leadership. There's a ton of investment in sales skills, very important. You should invest in that. There's a ton of investment in let's have this team building day. Okay, great. Yeah, let's have a team building day. But if Monday morning rocks around, you go back into work and hate your life because your boss is a douchebag, then like that's the catalyst. That's what's causing you. It's not let's do it. Let's have a mental health day. Let's have a yoga session. Yeah, great. But that's a plaster for the problem, right? It's not fixing the actual problem. And the problem,
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, 99 out of 100, is poor leadership, poor management.
Yeah, they made me put those Lululemons on, and I said, "That's the last time I'm doing yoga, man." I just,
I bet you look great in a pair of
no,
Lulus.
I do not. I mean,
No?
I look good in anything, okay? I admit, but
I can see that.
I just didn't feel my full manly self. Okay, so I'm not doing that
That's
anymore.
weird that you didn't feel your manly self in Lulus.
I'm not doing that. There's some weirdos out there, man.
Yeah, there are. Yeah. So long as they didn't make you wear a thong as well. I mean, that would have been.
So now I just hug men for 90 minutes every day in jujitsu.
Yeah, that'll do. There you go. Yeah,
that's
like
fine
therapy, right?
because we're trying to kill each other. So it's manly. Okay,
Manly hugging. Yeah, that's
manly
what
hugging. Okay,
beautiful.
but I digress. So do you get into skills training, or do you focus on, is it leadership that you're driving home for these folks?
It's both. It's both. And sometimes there's a team who have a phenomenal skill set, but lack of leadership. Sometimes there's a team who have terrible skill set and leadership is actually pretty good. That's where the 80-20 comes in. Sometimes it can be much more skills based and sometimes it can be much more leadership based, but it is a combination of the two for sure.
And how do you determine that? I mean, I think you'd mentioned is there like an assessment you give, or do you just kind of walk the floors for a bit and let your experience guide you? Like, how do you get down to the nitty gritty?
The big thing that most people lack is QC. They don't quality control enough, And so the first thing I will do if I go into a business is I'll QC everything. I'll QC meetings, I'll QC calls, I'll QC interactions, absolutely everything. And that'll usually give me a fairly good idea of where the problems lie, what's going on, whether it's skills based, whether it's emotional intelligence, what it is. Right? And then I'll use the rubric in order to determine exactly where we need to focus most of our energy. Is it management? Is it skills? Is it a bit of both? And then start pulling everything together from there.
Yeah, I put on a white lab coat and I carry like a clipboard, and I let them know.
And what's great about that is it doesn't put people on edge at all.
Watch, who's that guy? Don't ignore me.
Don't look at him in the eye. Don't talk to him.
Man, how do you do this in a remote, work from home kind of scenario, or even, international? How do you get the vibe?
Yeah. So same way, QC, you can QC their meetings. If they're a remote team, they're going to meet on Zoom. Pretty easy to QC. If they're having their sales calls on Zoom, easy to QC. If they're having their sales calls for a CRM, they're going to be recorded, so it's easy to QC. And then the same way, just do everything through Zoom. It's probably not as effective because there's a lot that gets hidden by a 2D screen that you can't articulate as well in person. But I've still had some fairly fantastic results working remotely with teams for sure.
How quick can people see results? Does this take a long time? I mean, is this sometimes like immediate? Like, because it's just an elephant in the room, like, whoo, this is finally being addressed?
Yeah, sometimes immediate. More so like skills. If it's a skills-based problem, it takes longer because you can't just fix a skill problem overnight. It takes a minute to ramp up. Leadership problems almost immediately, usually, certainly within inside of 7 days. You get the manager doing the right things at the right time with the right people, and it makes a big difference. But here's one of the things I noticed on one of the teams that I work with, and it was that they spent every single meeting focusing on the bottom performers.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes sense because if your bottom guy, it's like, okay, if Jeff and Wes are absolutely crushing it, we don't need to spend so much time on them. The problem with that is that Jeff and Wes now become complacent and they're like, well, I'm getting no attention. What about me? What about me? I want to learn, right? I've worked hard on my skill set. I always want to get better. Where's my attention? And so what I actually found is more effective is that if you focus on the top performer, a rising tide lifts all ships. You set the bar higher, and the top performer will pull the rest of the team up. And so I think that's a big mistake that a lot of people make. They focus super, super hard on the bottom performers. Not that they don't need attention, obviously they do, but then they almost disregard their top performers. Oh, they're all right. They're crushing it. They crush it every month. They'll be fine. And I think that's the worst thing you can do. You focus on the top performers. And the rest of the team look at them as a leader now. They're like, okay, they're top performer. That's great. And then they start doing things like, oh, hey, Wes, any chance I could listen to a couple of your calls? And now what that does is for you, okay, great. Now I feel good. Oh, yeah, I can help you. I've had a word in your ear previously, Wes. Some of the guys are going to ask you for some of your calls. Can you pass them your calls so that they can start learning from you? So now you get a significant Maslow's hierarchy, right? Now you get a significance boost and everything moves up from there. But too many people focus on the bottom performers, and I think that's the wrong way to do it.
Yeah. So when you look at lacking weak skills, is there a common thing? Is it prospecting? Is it negotiation, demonstration? Like any one area that tends to be weakest in
It can be all of
most?
them. Yeah, it can be all of them. And this is part of the problem. It's difficult for every individual. Somebody might have an amazing demo and a terrible discovery. Somebody else's discovery might be amazing, but then they get into the demo and it's a bun fight, right? So everything is different. But I would say one of the biggest problems are not necessarily so much in the high ticket space where I've operated a lot. This is more for more kind of traditional corporate environments. But a lot of the problem stems from not nailing the discovery, and if you're corporate, not disqualifying people quick enough. And everybody says, well, you can't disqualify people. It's a lead and the company's paid for the lead. And yeah, sure, that's valuable. That's true. But not every lead is going to want to buy your stuff, right? There are people that are going to be in the pipeline that are just kicking tires. There are going to be people in the pipeline that are just trying to get a price to drive another company down. So early disqualification is something that not a lot of teams I work with have done before. And all of a sudden, when they do, now the pipelines are clean, their close rates go up because they're dealing with people that are serious, not people that are just there to kick tires. And everything changes. So I tend to take the approach of early disqualification is often better than just trying to drag somebody through the pipeline. And then we're sat there crossing our fingers. Well, I've given them a proposal, so it could come over the line. And you hear crickets for 6 months before you finally realize that they were just price shopping you or never had any intention of buying at all. So early
Yeah.
disqualification is something that a lot of teams I see get wrong.
Yeah. Do you get involved with the marketing team at all? Because a lot of times I see silos, I see conflict between sales and marketing, which has always boggled my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I will.
Yeah, you got to
Yeah, I'll get
fix that.
involved in the marketing. And I'm not a professional copywriter. I'm not a professional funnel builder or anything like that. But I've been in and around them long enough for the last 10 years and worked on them for the last 10 years that I know what a good one and a bad one looks like. So I can very often advise some tweaks, usually very simple. I had one client, they had no what we call friction in the funnel, right? They would just, you could click on an ad on Facebook, you would go straight to a VSL, no opt-in page, and then you could go straight to a calendar and book a call.
Mm,
They're tearing their hair out, wondering why their calendars are jam-packed full of bad leads. And I'm like, well, there's
yeah,
no friction. There's no
yeah,
qualification process. There's no application process so that we can start grading and vetting these leads. And what do you know? You put an application process in place and all of a sudden we can keep the calendars clean and only allow good people on. So
yeah.
sometimes it's crazy simple stuff like that.
I had that years ago. I had a team here locally, had an office and training room, and brought these folks on, and they were sharp, and I already had good deal flow coming in, good lead generation using Infusionsoft, and I was one of their top partners. So they changed one of my campaigns to where anybody that downloaded these free reports that I was giving away, they created an opportunity in my CRM. And I'm like, just because you download a free report does not mean you're a qualified opportunity, right? I mean, it's exact thing. Your calendar blew up, everything blew up. All these things I got to manage. What stage is this? Why is the pipeline not coming to fruition? I'm like, turn that off.
Yeah,
Like, why'd
because the
y'all do this
pipeline's
to
full
me?
of people that don't want to buy.
Yeah, it's like they just wanted my free report and
Yep,
let me just drip on them and my long-term nurture. And then a percentage of them will raise their hand later when they're ready. Meanwhile, I'll focus on the ones that are truly hot,
exactly.
ready to go.
Yep,
So, yeah, I had that exact. But fortunately, I was the boss, so it was easy to fix. But,
easy to done.
whoo, I mean, there was a lot of things to go clean up, though.
Yeah.
Uh,
But yeah, I'll get stuck in with marketing. I've worked with a team recently, and the first thing the team said to me, I said, well, let's have an open and honest conversation. what do you guys think the problem is? Everybody just went, the leads are terrible. I'm like, okay, I will never advocate a salesperson telling me that the leads are terrible. That's like the lowest common denominator. Usually telling me that is like a red rag to a bull. But I'm always going to hear them out. And I'm like, all right, well, let's take a look. Let's listen to a few calls and let me determine if I think the leads are terrible. Sure as eggs is eggs. Them leads were terrible. Like there are people on the phone, they're broke. They're trying to buy one thing and we're selling another. And I'm like, oh, this is a disaster. So I went back to the team and I said, you're right. Your leads are terrible. I'm going to go and help the marketing department fix that. So we fixed it. They start getting better leads. Morale goes up. So yeah, I'll certainly get involved with marketing if need be.
Yeah. What's the Glenn Ross? I forget the exact quote. I'm trying to find
I
it.
forget that quote. I know what you're talking about.
These leads suck. These leads suck. You suck. I mean, it was something like
that's
that.
It. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, love it.
Like, my gosh.
Yeah, I will always tell a salesperson, don't ever come to me and tell me the leads suck, unless the leads suck. Right, and then you can come and tell me. And you know, this follows the whole ethos of it's not my fault, but it is my problem.
Yeah.
And this is okay. So if the leads suck, that is not, as a salesperson, your problem. Your problem is just to keep hammering away, but let me go and fix it so that the leads don't suck.
Yeah. Yep. Amen. Do you have clients nation or globally? You want U.S. folks calling you?
Yeah. UK, Canada, US, couple in Australia. Yeah. Although that you know, sometimes is a horrible time zone, depending on what part of Australia. But yeah, pretty much all over the place. Yeah.
Well, it's like what, at 6 p.m. for you? Coming up on 6 p.m.
Yeah, 10 to 6. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my evening is their early morning. My early morning is their evening. So I can usually fit them in somewhere around there. But yeah, global clients.
Yeah, nice. So I'm linking in the show notes. Everybody can see. So I'm linking to your LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also going to link to your newsletter. But if somebody, you know, if they're on the treadmill right now, they're driving, they can't write it down, you know, anywhere in particular you want them to go, or just scroll down to the description and click one of those links?
Yeah, can scroll down in the description. I'm most active on LinkedIn. I've got, you know, Facebook and all the other things, but most active on LinkedIn. And what I want to do for your listeners, Wes, is something a bit special for them, given that everybody, at least some, will have stayed to the end of this episode. So what I'm going to do is share with you guys something that you can't find anywhere else on the internet. And it's typically something that I only utilize with paying clients. However, if you stay to the end, then I do want to give it to you for absolutely free. And it's the Sales Team Management Masterclass. So it's a 45-minute masterclass on how to nail the fundamentals for a sales manager. And like I said, typically we reserve this for high-level clients, but I'm going to give it to anybody that's listened to this all the way through. So if you want that free of charge, go to my LinkedIn, which is at Jeff Ketterer, GeoffKetterer, and just send me the word team25 in the DMs, and I'll shoot it over to you, and you can have that free of charge, and hopefully it makes a difference to your team.
So Team 25. Here it
Team
comes.
25 on.
Bam. All right. Very cool. Well, I appreciate that. Wednesday night, almost 6 p.m. I'm about to head to jiu-jitsu.
Nice.
You're going to drink a little Guinness.
I'm not going to drink a little Guinness, Wes, because that's gonna not do me
it
very
wrecks
well.
us, as we were talking before. I mean, do y'all even celebrate St. Patrick's Day, or do you look over at Ireland and go, you bunch of ingrates, never mind, just leave us alone. We don't want anything to do with you.
Yeah, tons of people celebrate Paddy's Day. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's any excuse to get drunk, right? I mean, you know, I don't need
just making sure there's good blood. I still forget England, Britain, Great Britain, United Kingdom. It's like, man, y'all have layers within layers on top of layers.
Yeah, it's complicated. I don't know the difference.
Why is that so hard? I just saw a thing. It was like Canadians. They're like, I think people are given in feet and inches, like height, but other distances are given in kilometers, or like food is done like in the US, you know, ounces or whatever, but then other measurement. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. Like, that's confusing.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. Everything is measured in meters and stuff here, unless it comes to height, and then it's feet and inches.
It's like, so it's that way in the UK?
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's where Canada got it from. That's interesting.
Yeah, well,
look at man, learn something new every day.
Probably to do with us, you know. We had a hand in that for sure.
Interesting. And y'all aren't part of the euro, right?
Not anymore.
Oh, that's right. Well, the Brexit. right? But y'all did y'all adopt the euro? I thought we
No,
did not.
no, GB, Wes, come on, Great British Pound? What are you
I
saying?
know. But so you were part of the euro, but
But
did
we
not
kept our own currency. Yeah,
kept your own currency. Okay, so yeah. All right. So, but now you're totally out of the euro
yeah,
with Brexit.
for better or
Hey,
for
things are
worse.
looking up, man. I don't care what people think. Well, you can't see the hat. I don't know. I got my "Make Sales Great Again" hat on, so I'll see who that irritates.
Probably everybody in a blue state.
Hey, I'm disqualifying them, right? If you don't have a sense of
Great job.
humor, if you don't want to make sales great again, I'm probably not your guy.
You're
You
out.
know what?
I
You're
like that.
probably not their guy either, but maybe you are. I don't know. You might be kinder, gentler than me.
No, depends on the situation. I can be both.
Nice. All right. Well, Jeff Ketterer, man, hey, enjoy your evening, and thanks for carving out some time to come on the Sales Podcast.
Super appreciate it, Wes. Great talking to you, dude.
All right, man. Have a great night.
All right, you as well. Take care.
Hey, I hope you liked that interview. Jeff's a good dude. And you can just tell, right? Talking with people who knows their stuff, who comes at it from the right place, right? And I love the fact they focus on disqualifying. I have taught that forever. Our job in sales is to sort, sift, and separate, not sell. The only thing we can control is ourselves, right? And our prospecting. That's our number one job in sales. And when we're prospecting, we need to be disqualifying these prospects. I've used the analogy all the time, attorneys. Have you been hurt at work? Come see us, the free consultation. Those attorneys are disqualifying the heck out of you. Were you drinking on the job? Have you ever drank on the job? Do you do drugs? Were you high? Have you ever been reprimanded for that? They are disqualifying, you as a client because they only get paid if they win a case. And look, in business, we only get paid if we make the sale. So rather than running around trying to qualify everyone, disqualify them. And it doesn't mean that you're mean or angry or hostile or aggressive. Just ask good questions that accelerate the decision making, clarify what the truth is. And maybe the truth is that you can help them. Maybe the truth is you can't. Okay. In general, there's single digits of the general population are ready, willing, and able to buy right now. Now, if your marketing is better, if you get it dialed in, maybe it's double digits. Maybe it's 10, 20, 30% of the people you talk to are ready. But I mean, rare is it like the majority, like 90% ready, willing, and able to buy. So in general, right, most of the people you talk to can't hand over their money right now. So it's up to you to figure out how to get to that truth, then how to stay in touch until they are ready. So I'm glad you brought that up. I go over that extensively in the inner circle. I give you pointers on that on my free daily email. Okay. And if you know what to do, and maybe you've just been a little bit lackadaisical, get the 12 weeks to peak, print it out, keep it on your desk, hold yourself accountable. Okay. Because it's the little things that matter. The little things make up the big things. And the big things are always comprised of a bunch of little things. Get the little things right. Okay. The big things will take care of themselves. If you need help with that, any of that, hit up Jeff, hit me up, find somebody to help you grow your sales. All right. Elite performers always surround themselves with elite peers, elite coaches, elite experts in narrow fields. So they get better in every area. You can do the same. All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Now go sell something.